dorky thing about how I feel about the show, I feel like season one was the acceptance that one needs therapy, but season two is really digging into the work of therapy. And I was just like, surely season two can't even come close to how much I love season one, but season two, in my opinion, is even better than season one.
Oh,
Um,
awesome.
I I don't know if this is gonna sound mean, but I kind of love seeing Brian stressed out. There's there's a real sort of and I mean this complimentary. There's a sort of the highs and lows and the way that you rocket between them is very Muppety, which I love. Um, so I think your work on season two is really wonderful, and thank you for taking the time to talk to me.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, Muppety is the greatest compliment I've ever gotten. And indeed, those were my acting heroes. So
yeah,
to
still look up
hear,
to them to this day. Yes.
yes, absolutely. I mean, the choices that they made, and you're right, the 0 to 60 mentality of a character can be in this place and then completely switch. That's something that a Muppet can pull off in such an amazing way because they really can truly be still.
Oh yeah.
Like
No.
their faces can truly be still, and then they can completely
Uh,
freak out.
I get this, like, this a lot, of
Yes,
course.
exactly. So
Um,
that was definitely an inspiration, and I'm honored to hear that it's working.
Good. I'm glad I can affirm that for you. That's wonderful. Um, I guess if we start at the beginning of the season, I wanted to ask first, the way I think it might be episode one where you realize that Jimmy and Gabby are hooking up, and I even wrote down the string of dialogue that you have. In my opinion, you're outside, you're sweaty, you're hiking. Hiking is like the last thing I personally would ever want to do. And you say, "What? Our Jimmy? No, ew, gross. I guess I could see it." Um, do, do you think he is Brian is more angry that he wasn't told or they were doing it in the first place?
Oh, 1,000% he's upset that he didn't have the tea. He is so paranoid of being left out. He has such FOMO
Oh yeah.
that when he finds out that his two very close friends have been doing something and neither of them told him, and Liz knows. I think he's furious to be out of the loop. And then he starts to think about that's why I love that dialogue. And that, by the way, is if you saw the script, that's literally what the script says. What you just transcribed is literally what the script says. And that he starts with such a in such a place of fury that um he was not led into to the secret. He was not
Yeah.
allowed to know. And then he starts to think about the actual logistics of them sleeping together. And,
No.
and I love
Yeah.
how it's like, ew, gross. I guess I can see it. Like that turn is so to me, Brian. And he actually like goes there and he's like, I guess I could understand the two of you being compatible sexually, but it's still so upsetting.
Yeah.
That was the first scene I shot of season two. That
Oh
was our
really?
first day back. And I
Uh
remember being so excited. And I remember actually Krista said something to me that day. Um, she said something like, "You're so funny when you're angry."
yeah.
And she's like, "That's what Bill," she's, because Krista and Bill, of course, are married. So
Hmm.
Krista's like, "Bill thinks you're so funny when you're angry." And he's right. Something like that. And I remember being like, okay, season two is going to be great.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a I have been told, maybe because I'm very short and I've been described as I have a very curmudgeonly quality to myself personally. That anytime that I get like genuinely mad, like there are a couple people in my friend group, I'm like, oh, he's angry. I was like, shut up. It's legitimate. Um, is fuck you red shirt and fuck your leggings, was that improv or in the script?
That's in the script.
Oh my fucking god, I love that.
Fuck you, red shirt. You two Legends was in the script. Maybe not. Maybe there might have been fuck this whole map. No, I
Yeah.
think this whole mountain was in the script too. I think that everything I say in that is completely verbatim. Maybe
Mm,
there's some like extra grunts and screams that I added, but that's the beauty of this show is the writing is so good
yeah,
that we definitely improvise and we definitely come up with things together with the writer and with the producer on the day. Um, but my number one goal is get what they wrote in my brain
yeah,
because it will always do me right.
yeah. It's great writing. It's awesome.
It's great writing.
Um, okay, so I'm really fascinated with the fact that Brian is so honest with how much, I'll say, how much he is scared about being a parent.
Mhm.
I think I admittedly, when my husband and I got together, we are like, yeah, kids. And then there was at one point where I realized, oh, I don't want kids anymore. And I was really worried to have that conversation.
Yeah.
And I don't think we see very much, to speak in generics about like queer characters, or they're not allowed to kind of like buck against the idea of maybe like marriage or having a family. And I guess I wanted to know what was kind of crucial for you in the arc of season two about like honoring the honesty of that, because I think it's very important and I don't think I've really seen it before.
No, there is this sort of like sense that because we are allowed to get married and because we are allowed to have children, that we should and
Hmm.
that we should want to. But that is, like there's plenty of straight people who don't want to get married and don't want to have
Yeah.
children. And so it's only natural that there also be queer people that way. And I'm in this Brian and I are in a special sort of sweet spot um generation generationally where we grew up for the most part not thinking that that was a possibility. Certainly marriage. I mean, queer people were starting to adopt and have children long before marriage was legal. Um, but the idea of conforming to the hetero norms of marriage and parenthood, that was not in the cards for me
Yeah.
really until, I mean, being a parent more so, obviously, but like until marriage equality was passed in uh 2014,
2015. Yeah.
2015, we weren't really thinking that way. So Brian and Charlie and me and my partner Ryan, like those conversations were very different than I think people who are coming of age now.
Hmm.
Or people who came of age before who sort of fought for it and they were beyond the decision. So I agree with you. It's really refreshing that we get to see this couple kind of, deep into their relationship who think that those conversations are basically over. I mean,
Yeah.
Charles and Brian think that those conversations are basically over. And I think that their relationship is probably, yeah, it's younger than my relationship. I don't know when they got together, but it was um, I don't think it's been that long, but they think that this is settled, or at least
Yeah.
Brian thinks this idea is settled. And when Charlie holds a baby, suddenly his ovaries start screaming, and he decides, I need to do this. I want to be a
Yeah.
father. And there's this like kind of misunderstanding. And so a lot of season two um, is Brian coming around to this idea and trying to figure out where he fits in this narrative and Charlie's narrative.
Mm.
Uh, and I think that I agree. I was really proud that we went there and we showed that side of things. What happens when your dream, what happens when you have to sort of dig your dream out from the years um, of denial and
Yeah.
protection, like we protected ourselves from these heteronormative dreams because they weren't ours.
Yeah, it was sort of like the automatic feeling. It was like, well, you can't get married and you can't have kids. So naturally that's the next step. But I love how the show really shows the messiness of how Brian feels about it. Like he's
Yeah.
very honest a lot of times. And I actually when I was rewatching it, it's not even you're not even the focus of the scene when you're holding the baby and Jessica and Harrison are having a scene together. You're like sitting and you're like bouncing the baby. It is so adorable. So I can sort of like see Brian's ovaries exploding. So that was
Right. Yes. Yeah,
yeah.
bro. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I mean, and I don't have kids, but I when I hold a baby, there is something very, that's a real, even these actor babies,
Hmm.
only give me before we roll and take away as soon as we got. These even holding these actor babies is like you feel something.
Yeah.
It is real, but that's a moment. That's not the whole thing, and that's not
Yeah.
the day. And playing a character like Brian who does the Muppety twists and turns so fast, it is, like what better way to show how this guy can turn on a dime than putting a baby in his
Yeah.
lap.
I mean, I'm assuming the babies are method, so I'm sure they're just doing the baby. The baby's like, I have to be a giant baby as a baby.
Right.
Yeah.
And we have to refer to them as baby
I
offset.
know. Oh my God. So exhausting. Um, I want to ask about Lewis and Brian. I think it's really fascinating that Lewis is the entry point to that.
Yeah.
I was sort of, I don't know, I was like, why does, I don't know, Brian has an instinct to follow Lewis when Lewis leaves Alice and Jimmy's house, which leads to, I guess you could say, I have it written down as Brian's explanation slash one man show, um, where you at one point say, it's hard to stop once I get going.
Yes.
That is such an emotional high point, um, that involves different characters. And so I was just curious what kind of conversations you guys had about that. And I mean, I know the answer to this. Like, how easy is it for Brian to make, a dramatic one man show about it? But I think I already know instinctively how easy that is.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely spent time workshopping and rehearsing that one man show, and
Sure.
it came out almost effortlessly. But I do think it was, I think it was hard for him on the one hand to keep the secret,
Yeah.
uh, and yet he knew the consequences if anyone found out. But to answer your question about how Brian became the gateway for Lewis to come into the group and sort of join, not he doesn't I don't think he joins the group, but he definitely like gets folded in
Yeah.
and cared for during
More than you
season.
would think so. Yeah.
More than you would, yeah, totally. And I think I remember when they cast Brett, which was such a good piece of casting.
Hmm.
And everyone found out, oh, Brett's joining the show. I was so excited for people to find out what role he was going to play.
Hmm.
And nobody guessed. Everybody was guessing, like, oh, is he this? Is he a love interest for so and so? Is he going to be this? Is he a patient? Is he?
Hmm.
I was like, you got no idea. You are not ready for what.
No.
It was very exciting. And so then for my character, and I read it in the script. We got that episode. I think it was episode 4, where Brian's the one who catches Lewis at the mailbox,
Hmm.
essentially. And I remember thinking, I'm the one who gets this. This is me. And then the more I thought about it, the more it became inevitable because he's the one who's reckless enough to follow that lead.
Hmm.
But also
Okay.
because he's going through in that episode, they're so good at the building blocks. They have layered in these building blocks of who he is and what he's going through right then and there. And he in that episode he's confused and worried about this fatherhood thing because he thinks he's going to be a terrible
Right.
father,
Yeah.
and he sits down with the gang, and that's the episode where um we introduce the special where Derek gives him the special.
Hmm.
It's just, Brian, you're going to be, it's just Ted McGinley looking you in the eye, taking a deep breath and saying
Yeah.
everything's going to be okay, which really works, by the way, in real life and on the
Yeah.
show. And if you can get Ted McGinley to put his hands on your shoulders and tell you everything's going to be
I
okay,
would
it
die.
will. But then also Jimmy gives an incredible piece of advice that we essentially recreate. He says, whenever somebody needs you and whenever you're in that situation, you show up and you're there and you take a deep breath and you do the right thing. Something like that. I'm totally butchering it and paraphrasing it, but it's something about taking a deep breath and making the right choice.
Yeah,
And so when he's confronted with Lewis out front at the mailbox, and he says, um, "Go, get away. You know
yeah,
they're fine. You shouldn't be here." And then he sees how much Lewis needs a friend in that moment.
yeah.
How he needs somebody. There's a moment where Brian actually takes a deep breath and says, "Wait," and goes. And it's paid off right there in the episode. Um, it was very exciting, and I remember vividly shooting that. Zach Braff directed that episode,
Hmm.
and it was my first scene with Brett. And it was at night, and it was a beautiful evening in Altadena, and
Hmm.
a very cool scene to shoot. And then it became this wonderful arc with the one man show, and then the reprise of the one man show.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's interesting to have a character like Brian when he is confronted with a problem that he immediately understands how important it is and how big the stakes are. So it made me think, especially when I rewatched it, that I mean, I kind of share his feelings. Like my husband would be a great father. I would be a horrible father. I think that's the reason why I realized I didn't want to have kids. So it was sort of like but at the same time, he's I don't know, I don't want to say like forced to grow up a little bit there, but it really kind of gives him perspective. And I always really enjoy that Brian never doesn't understand the sort of underlying emotionality of what might be going on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think what's interesting about that, and maybe you and your husband, is on the surface, what makes somebody a good parent could be something like, look how good they are with children, or
Hmm.
look how responsible they are, or how patient they are. But
Right.
and those are like, those are the sort of baseline traits of being a good parent. But there's
Yeah.
actually all these other things, and I think in that moment, the ability to see a person in need, a human, a whole human in need, and act against the odds to help
Yeah.
that person against like crazy, crazy stakes. Like, oh, this is the guy who ran over my good friend.
Yeah.
And we've all spent the last year and a half mourning the actions of this individual, and I am going to help him now.
Hmm.
That to Brian, for Brian is actually more proof that he's a good person and could be a good father than any baby handling or patience or responsibility he takes in other parts of his life. That's like a key element of a human being that so I think um it was a lovely way to show a character that is often seen as a bit of a basket case and a
Hmm.
narcissist, to show that he is he is he's got what it takes to be a good human. And
Yeah.
it's also, I think what's also so great about the show is how much we all, including the three therapists,
Hmm.
benefit from being in a chosen family of therapists or with therapists. Um, he's
Hmm.
learned. There's a great scene. There was a great episode. I won't spoil anything about season three, but there's something we shot recently. Um, because I always think about this show, maybe we've talked about this, but I always think about this show as being every scene is like who's on the couch and who's got the pad. Like somebody that, yeah, every scene, somebody is the therapist and somebody's the patient, and it switches.
Yeah.
Sometimes Brian's the therapist, and usually he's the patient. But
Yeah.
there's a great scene in this season that we're shooting now where somebody is the patient and everybody else becomes the therapist. And
Okay.
the patient character sort of says, all right, what's the deal with me here? And we all weigh in.
Mm,
The first time I've ever looked at a script, looked at a line of Brian's, and I had this nice chunk of text, and it was like therapy. It was like me giving a therapist's take on something. And I remember
mm,
thinking, this doesn't feel like Brian. He doesn't he doesn't know this. He
yeah.
doesn't like this. And I had trouble learning it. Actually, I had trouble memorizing it.
Mm.
Very rare on this show. Everything always gets right in there because it's such good writing. And it wasn't until we started rehearsing the scene and Bill came through and he was like, okay, then you're the therapist and you're the therapist and you guys are competing to give her this information. And it all became clear. It's like, oh, I see what's going on. So this is what we've all learned from hanging around all these therapists. And we're
Hmm.
so excited to use these skills. And it's a scene that's Krista and I. It's so funny. I do mine and then she does hers, or vice versa. I can't remember. But Bill was like, and before you do it, maybe fight over who gets to say it first. And then it suddenly all made sense. So we sort of fight
But
over, I want to go, I want to go. No, no, okay, fine, you go, you go.
yeah, I mean, I think
And
I constantly think about how Brian subconsciously, like, it's sort of like the best kind of scenario. He gets therapy and he doesn't really have to pay for it, and it kind of just like seeps into his brain, and he's probably a lot smarter and a lot more adept at handling other people's emotions, that more than he probably consciously thinks of. So I
totally,
think if probably after like season 3, season 4, if you go back and look at Brian from season 1, episode 1, you could probably see the complete change in attitude and how he talks to people, which I think something to look
I
forward to.
I love that. I hope you're right, and I hope that that's in there. And
Yeah,
I do think he is getting mental health care via osmosis.
yeah. It's great. Um, I just have to say before I let you go, there's just so many, you have so many like really funny like one-liners that feel almost like throwaway lines, but you give them such, they're juicy. Like the part where Heidi Gardner says about like, I pushed him off a cliff and his legs were wrapped around his neck, and you just say, oh, pain, like a scarf. You're like, oh, painful but cozy. Or whenever you and Jason Segel, which I was very tempted to ask, how easy is it to slap Jason Segel? Um, but when he makes Brian realize that he's actually Alice's godfather, and you under your breath say, "Oh, I owe her some gifts." Like that is so fucking funny, and I'm so excited to see how maybe Brian will deal with. He knows how overbearing Liz is, but when it's like with his family and his child, I'm so excited to see maybe what that dynamic will look like.
Yeah.
I love the Thanksgiving episode because we have so many people, everyone all together at one time. It's such a beautiful, that's a beautiful, so much emotion goes into that.
Oh my gosh, that Harrison speech is
Oh my
so.
God, just kill me. Just kill me.
Oh my God.
Um,
And we all sat there that whole day watching him give it over and over again. And it was beautiful every time. Even when the camera was on us, he gave
God,
it's beautiful. And then and we cried, we all cried. And then I watched it on TV and I cried again.
right
And then
again.
people posted it on socials and I watched it again and I cried again. I mean, it was
Yeah.
really quite beautiful. And that we were all, and Bill and the producers and the writers are so good. They're like, they make such an amazing environment to work in.
Hmm.
And that speech was to the entire cast. I think everybody, all of the main cast except Luke was there. Luke Tenney's character, Sean, was at his own family Thanksgiving.
Hmm.
Those characters were not there, but all of the characters were there. Everybody else, the whole, Liz and Derek's whole family, Gabby's family was there. There was like it was just like a full house, and that day everybody got to do something. So even
Yeah.
though
Yeah.
everybody got a piece, and I watched it happen. I watched Bill go around and say, "Okay, make sure you say this here," and things that weren't in the script that he like threw in, and we all got to feel. Even the young people. There were so many young people there that day. playing the kids on the show, and we all got to be there on a day that Harrison gave one of this incredible, his career
Yeah.
is so huge and he loves acting so much. And we got to watch him give, not the last, certainly, he's not slowing down, but
No.
like here's an act three aria, and we were there feet from him as he gave it. And we'll never forgive that. We'll never forgive that. We'll never forget that. I'll never forgive him for making us sit there and watch that. Damn, no. We'll never forget that we got to watch Harrison give this. It was a big moment. It's probably going to go down as like, top 10 moments of his career.
Yeah, I came to the season two late, and I put something on like Twitter or Instagram, be like, I'm finally catching up with Shrinking, and they were like be prepared for Harrison Ford in the finale. Like I don't want to hear anything. And there I was at 1 o'clock in the morning on like a Wednesday night, like the ugliest I have ever cried probably in my entire life. Like I half expected, like I was so loud, I thought my husband was gonna like come downstairs, like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's that's a
The,
beautiful
the,
moment in a
the line
beautiful
that
episode.
got me in that monologue that gets me every time is when he starts saying, I don't know how much longer I'm going to have to work with you. And then and then he says, hang out with you.
Yeah.
That was the one that really got me. Not because I mean because I people call the show a hangout show, which I think is so cool,
Yeah.
and it's a chosen family show, and his character and he they put on this Harrison puts on this curmudgeon persona, which is so funny and delightful in the press, and you've seen it
Yeah.
a million on red carpets or whatever, where he pretends like he's not having a good time, but he loves it so much. And Paul does too. So
Yeah.
that Paul admits that he likes hanging out with us, even though
Yeah.
all he does is complain about not wanting to be around us, not wanting to hang out with us, not wanting us to be there. That was, and also that's my relationship. I mean, I'm his lawyer in the show, but also I'm part of this chosen family, and he admits to liking hanging out with us.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah. Uh, you make me want to watch the whole season all over again. Yeah. Um,
Well, I can't wait for you to see what's in store for season three.
oh my
There's
God.
he
Yeah.
of course, has beautiful stuff, but there's great stuff all around. They've done it again. And
Yeah.
I'm not somebody who like asks the writers what's coming down the pike. I like to be surprised. I like to open the script
Hmm.
uh, when I get it and be surprised the same way that you are when you watch the
Yeah.
episode. So I really don't know what's coming. We're almost there. Where I think we have 4 episodes left. We're like, we're on our way to the end of the season, and
Yeah.
it's been really beautiful, exciting, and a lot of crazy things thrown our way, and very funny.
Yeah.
Uh, so funny. I mean, we're doing things that like I get excited about for a week before we do them, and then I laugh about for a week after we do them.
That's great. Uh,
It's really amazing.
I'm sorry. I said before I let you go, but I'm going to say one last thing. I was reading about you're overseeing Pride plays again.
Yes.
I sure. I mean, not to like bring it down from comedy. Like, I never thought I would live to kind of see a time and a place where there's not just arts are under attack, but there's like a blatant, almost feeling almost purposeful misunderstanding of
Yeah.
what art does.
Right.
So when I read about that, I was very grateful as a super swishy gay person who reads a lot of gay stuff. Just if it's gay, give it to me. So I was just really excited to see that you were overseeing that again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been a really cool, it's a real it's such a bomb for me personally, but I know for so many queer artists, I read so many queer plays to prepare for Pride plays, and there's such good stuff out there. And
Hmm.
obviously the theater does not have a lack of queer artists. That was not why we started.
What?
There are lots of queer artists in the theater, and the theater definitely like takes care of its queer people. But
Hmm.
the tricky thing is that at any given theater or producer's desk, um, it's inevitable that that scripts about queer stories will end up together,
Yeah.
even though they might be totally different. And so we were getting frustrated not only with, actors and directors, and those kinds of performing artists getting lumped into the same category. I
Yeah.
kept finding myself lumped into on the same lists with actors that I felt like were totally different than me, but because we
Hmm.
were similar ages and queer, we were, up for the same things or whatever. And the same is true for plays. It's like these plays have nothing to do with each other except for that the writer is LGBTQIA.
Yeah.
Every other facet of their lives is different. And every other facet of these plays are different from each other except for that one thing. And yet they get lumped into each other and they cancel each other out.
Hmm.
So that's why we started Pride Plays was like a place where those plays could live alongside one another, and we could just have a bunch of queer plays living in harmony together and not in
Yeah.
competition with each other. And so it's been very gratifying. And of course, this year it's even more charged, and we're doing a festival in Washington, D.C. during World Pride as a part of World Pride with the Woolly Mammoth Theater Company.
Yeah.
And we get our funding from donors, and individuals and angels, things like that. And there has been in the past some corporate funding that's come our way. And just today, actually, I was on an email chain, a Pride Please email chain, where we found out that some corporate sponsorship that we were hoping for isn't going to happen
Hmm.
because a lot of these corporations who just a few years ago could not be proud enough during June are now not giving money, because people are super freaked out, it seems like, about
Man.
the eye of it all, and about, angering the administration and rocking the boat, which is I hope that does not last, but it does seem to be. I think people are feeling it.
Yeah.
People are feeling that, like, oh, that time is past. Hopefully, we'll come back around to it. But
Yeah.
so wild. You think about like pride displays at Target just a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
being, and now. So I'm not worried about our festival. I think it's going to be amazing, and we're
Yeah.
definitely going to have money, and we're going to be able to produce and everything. I mean, like that's not a problem, um, but that's a bummer. That's a bummer that we all feel like we have to look over our shoulders.
Yeah. It's weird. It's a weird feeling. It's I have like sometimes when I change my like wristwatch band, I have like a rainbow one that I don't wear all the time, but for it was like the first time I was wearing it like out at like my day job event function, and I just happened to not change it from the rainbow thing. And I felt bad that I felt self-conscious about it. It was weird because I was like, you can, even if I wasn't wearing it, I'm like the limpest wristed person in the world. But for some reason, I don't know, it's like that took me back to when I was like 15 or 16 years old,
Right.
to when I was like really paranoid about like being outed, or even I don't know, it's a weird time, and I'm just really glad that something like Pride Plays is like, I don't say taking a stance just by existing, but it's great. I think it's really wonderful.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah.
And that's great. But it's true. Like, well, we still come out every day.
Hmm.
Come out every day as we navigate. Unless you work at GLAAD, or the HRC, you have to come out every day.
Yeah.
And there's still people who will say things like, I mean, we still hear people say things like, you can do what you want and be who you want, just don't shove it in my face. Or just don't, and that is a deceptive form of um, both acceptance and um, homophobia,
Yeah.
because because they think that they're accepting you,
Hmm.
They're actually telling you to go back into the closet, essentially, um, or hide yourself. You can be yourself. You can, it's weird. Somebody responded to a message on social media to me that said um, something to that recently. This was very recent. Uh, we just don't want to, you don't see me going around telling everybody I'm straight, something like that. And it's like, that's literally what you're doing right now.
I was like,
And
well, that's very comforting because you know what? Like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry that it made you uncomfortable. I'm only at 30%. I can be a lot gayer if you want. Don't threaten me with a good time. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, we don't have to go around telling everyone, yeah, you're not going around telling everyone you're straight, but you are telling me that I shouldn't go around telling everyone that I'm gay, and you're telling me to be more like you
Yeah.
at the same time. So it's like, um, so don't feel bad that you hesitate because
Yeah.
it's real.
Yeah.
And they do see a difference between us just being ourselves and us putting that one extra step towards telling you that we're that.
Yeah.
How that offends them but hopefully you won't have to hesitate um much longer.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what a good little therapy session that we just had as we talk about shrinking. Love that. Um, I love the show so much. Thank you so much for being so generous with me.
Oh, my
Cannot wait
pleasure.
for season three. Congratulations on the Critics' Choice. That was I was so happy when
Oh,
that happened.
my gosh,
Um,
that was such a cool moment
yeah.
and meant
So
so much. And it really is like it, I know this is something I think I said it when I won. Like I know that that the critics are watching, the members of the Critics' Choice Association, which you are, right? Like you have to watch so closely, so
mhm.
much closer than I watch TV. And so that you watched, that the critics watched and saw, I felt very seen, I guess is the
Yeah.
quick saying it. I felt very seen and as somebody who, and everybody on the show, actually, we love acting so much and we have so much fun, but we also take it so seriously, especially the
Yeah.
comedy. And it means a lot to be seen.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you again. Um, I could literally talk to you all day, but I will not keep you. So have a good rest of your day. Good luck to you this season, and just a pleasure. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe.
Yeah,
It's great talking to you. Great to
you
see
too.
Nancy and Mr.
Yeah,
Rogers.
still be
And
here. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Nancy's from here, it looks like Nancy's in the closet
Yeah. Well,
because
well,
that
we'll
door
just have to bust her out. That's all.
is out.
Yeah. Yay. All right. Thank you so much.
All
Have a
right.
good rest of your day.